right, everybody. Welcome to the C3 Baseball Recruiting Podcast. Every month, I send out a podcast, I send out a recruiting newsletter, and subscribers get unlimited access to me through a messaging system on c3recruits.com where they can ask me any recruiting questions they want, which has been awesome so far. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about hitting, lifting, and just being a great athlete in general. We have a pretty cool guest on today. Ian Jenkins has been he's been around for a little while. Younger guy, but man, he's got a huge following mainly because he does things the right way in regards to how he works with his guys, which is awesome. So, as a high school player a while back, All-American, had an opportunity to play some SEC baseball. Got drafted out of high school too, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I got
Yes,
drafted
sir.
out of high school. And I know you developed the Freak Athlete Protocol, basically helping athletes with anything having to do with rotational strength and kind of focusing on the offensive side because you can. I mean, dude, you're still pretty physical, man. I mean,
Yeah.
you can still generate a little power, I'm sure. So I know you have a huge following. I know online you do stuff with strength training, you do stuff with hitting. You have an Olympic gold medalist that you work with on the speed side of things, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And then, I mean, the amount of followers you have is, we talked about this, a couple weeks ago. I'm not a huge social media guy. I don't understand how people get a ton of followers, but you have generated a mass following with the content you put out there because it is just so good, right? It's just
I
people,
appreciate that.
right? People just love to see it. And it's not fluff, which is important to me. I've really tried to keep my circle small over the years of people that, again, are doing things for the right reasons, trying to help people, whether they have 5 followers or 5 million followers. I don't really care, but
Mhm.
I know something that we've discussed in the past is, a quote that you kind of live by, which is, this is where I want to start today.
Mhm.
I've failed, so you don't have to. Can you kind of,
Yeah.
can you dive into that a little bit? What exactly do you
Yeah.
mean by that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'll tell you where I got it originally was from my father. So all the time he used to tell me, "I'm giving you the keys to the kingdom, and you're not using them. Like, why am I going through? Why did I live my entire life and have all these experiences if my son can't benefit from them?" So essentially saying, I did all this failure, I've had all these experiences, so you don't have to go through them. So that's where it originated, and how I use it for on my platform is my dad and I are absolute swing nerds, just hitting nerds, right? So after I got drafted, we flew all over the country to hit with this hitting guru, that hitting guru, because I was mad because I thought I was going to get picked a lot higher, and I wasn't. So I was kind of like on my revenge tour, right? I was motivated, really motivated at that time. So I hit with this hitting guru, that hitting guru, and I amassed all this information. And I thought that I was going to be a better hitter afterwards. And the reality of it was that I wasn't. I was more confused than ever, and I had more information than ever. I didn't know how to sift through it. I didn't know what was applicable to me, what I should throw away, what I should actually use. So now I use my platform to basically tell people about all the things that I failed with, so they don't make the same mistakes that I did. So that's where I failed, so you don't have to. Comes into play.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I think, I have my kid just turned 4 and he's, he's starting up T-ball and all that stuff. And I think about all the voices that these kids hear these days, right?
Mm-hmm.
With social media in particular, right? You got a million experts out there, right? Which
Yep.
can be very difficult. So, can you kind of dive into what you do, right? I know you do
Yeah.
a lot. I know you are a crazy busy man. Can you dive
Yeah.
into exactly what, Jenkins Baseball is and talk about your platforms a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as some of you might know, my main account on Instagram is Ian Jenkins Hitting, and right now we're at 249,000 followers, which I'm so blessed to say that number is larger than I ever thought it was going to be, especially when I started this journey.
Crazy.
On YouTube, where it's Ian Jenkins Baseball, we just hit 75K yesterday, and on TikTok, I'm right a little over 80,000 followers on TikTok, and on those platforms for ever since the beginning, the goal was to create the most valuable content that's relevant to the athlete. And because I'm a bit closer to the demographic of the high schoolers, I felt like I knew what problems they were going through and whatnot, and I could really speak to them on their level in a way that they could understand. So I just try and post as much valuable content about hitting as I possibly can. And through my experiences, through conversations with guys like you, just trying to like I've learned some things from you that I've already shared with when I hop on calls with certain clients and things like that, right? So I'm always trying to take all my experiences and just throw them out there so people can benefit from them. And the program that I run is called the Freak Athlete Protocol. I named it that because it was always my goal. When I was a high school baseball player, I just wanted to throw myself in a lab and do everything the right way based off of science, so I could become like a freak athlete. I wanted to be the biggest, strongest, fastest guy out there. So essentially, I built the program that I always wanted when I was a little kid, which is freaking awesome. But more specifically, what we do is we bring athletes in and we customize them a rotational power program that's designed off their deficiencies. And then we give them hitting support and a sprint program that's designed by our three-time world champion, Terrence Trammell. On the hitting side, we just break down their videos, figure out the inefficiencies in their movement pattern, give them a set of drills to work on those. And then from there, they have unlimited feedback and 24/7 access for any questions or confusion that they might have. And then we make changes to that specific hitting program that they have based off their progress or lack thereof. So it's not like we go and give you this cookie cutter program where it's like, you learn this, you learn this, you learn this. Like, that's not how it works. We actually meet the athlete where he is, fully customize a program for him, and then we go from there based off of how they respond to the workload that we've given them. And I'm very, very proud to say I'm the only program in all of sports, at least to my knowledge right now, with a 100% money back guarantee based off the metrics, which I think is really important because in any business, but especially mine, I want to tie my success directly to my clients and the kids that I help, because I think it means more than and if our success is tied together, then if they win, I win. If I win, they win. I think that's how it should be. I think that's how any good business is. And we've been doing this for a little over a year now. And yeah, it's been fun. It's been really fun.
And I know we talked about this in the past. When I see the commercials, right, for the real estate guy that's, we're going to buy your house cash. Don't worry about anything. I'm always skeptical when and I even have a buddy that does that in the real estate world, but I always get skeptical when I see things like that. I know you've been doing this a little while. How many people have you had to give their money back because they didn't meet your goals?
Yeah. So I'm proud to say that we have not had to reimburse anyone from our program. And why? Because it's really, really simple. I tell everybody this: like, we have the science to help you reach your genetic potential, whatever that might be, but it is ultimately up to you if you reach that or not, by how much work you're willing to put in consistently over time. Like, there's no way around the work. And we essentially, what we do, like more on the scientific side, we figure out what the client's force velocity profile is, so we can program them according to their deficiency, and the change and the after the first 4-week assessment, the program changes on a bi-weekly basis based off the data points that they submit. So essentially, the numbers don't lie, and it provides us the compass on how to effectively train that athlete so we can avoid plateaus. If their train is going in a direction that we don't like, we can immediately make an adjustment because we have the numbers and the data to support that. So that's why we've had so much success, because it's like, it's not a guessing game. You know what I mean? If we were guessing, then it'd be a really bad business model to run a guarantee like that, I think. But we have the science to back it. And if they do everything that we ask in the order in which we ask them, because the order that we give them the workouts are very important as well, I've never had to give anyone's money back.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I know, yeah, there's no shortcuts, right? I think that's part of the
Yeah.
problem with today's society,
Mhm.
on my side of things, right? The consulting world. I'm very educational, but I also do the individual consulting, right? Where I'm helping families.
Mhm.
And a lot of the time they just think people like me are going to get them scholarships. It's like, dude,
Yeah.
it doesn't work like that. Parents, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that, buddy. Like, you got to get in the weight room and you got to work hard. So there's a lot
Mhm.
that goes into it. I mean, for you, I know you kind of work with a pretty wide range of age groups.
Mhm.
For that kid that's, kind of just starting out high school, maybe freshman or sophomore, and he's, wanting to play college baseball, what advice would you give him? Mainly on the offensive side to really get
Yeah.
him to take his game to that next level.
Yeah, so and honestly, I see this even at the college level. People are like really gung ho on mechanics, and don't get me wrong, I love hitting mechanics, and I'm a mechanic guy, right? That's how I got my start, just diving into mechanics, especially just obsessing over Barry Bonds' swing back in the day with my dad. Um, but what I've noticed is even the really good college players, and this is especially with the really good high school players, their swings might not be incredible, but they have great baseball IQ and they make incredible swing decisions. And I think that the better approach that you can have mentally, the less you have to depend on elite mechanics and elite adjustability to succeed at a high level. So, what I would have to say to them is outside of just like getting in the gym and getting stronger, make sure your mental approach is locked in. And the best thing that you can do for yourself is have great pitch recognition and understand where your hot zones are. Understand Juan Soto just signed a $765 million contract because he has elite plate discipline. He has great power. He has great bat to ball, but it all really came down to his plate discipline. And that's why he got the largest contract in baseball as a hitter, right? So uh, don't learn that lesson and try to apply it to your game as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think that is something that is so lost with hitting guys today, right? I'm
Mhm.
in San Diego, California.
Mhm.
Within 30 miles of me, there are 25 hitting guys that know it
Hitting
all.
gurus.
Yeah, they're
Hitting
gurus.
gurus.
They know it all. And man, it's it's a lot about mechanics and hunting the fastball, and you hear the same things over and over again, right? And I talk about my experiences because that's all I know, right? Of hey,
Mhm.
if you ask any of my coaches, and I talked to, recently I had a guest on that's assistant big league hitting coach for the Red Sox named Ben Rosenthal, and we talked about
Mhm.
this, how you could ask any of my coaches, and they would all say the same thing, dude. Joey's swing was not good. It was not a pretty swing. He kept getting hits, right? And I
Mhm.
think that's part of the mental part of it, right? Just the pure competitiveness of I'm not going to lose, and going up
Mhm.
there and understanding, right? Hey, all right, this guy's 90-93 sinkers. He's coming in on my hands. That approach, right? When you're in the dugout watching, that approach that you're getting ready for is different for the soft lefty that's just staying away, 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 right?
Mhm.
Your swing is probably going to stay similar, but it's really the plan that needs adjusting. So I think
Absolutely.
that's something that really needs to be talked about more to these young kids, right? As they're getting into high school and things are starting to change a little bit, they're starting to see more velocity, right? The
Yeah,
plan's always going to change depending on the arm. So, I mean,
absolutely.
if you had some mechanical stuff, I know we're going to kind of bounce around a little bit, but if you had some mechanical stuff that you would talk about, what would you say are one or two of the most important things mechanically on the offensive side?
Yeah, I would say the number one thing that I see guys struggle with today is simply just a lack of body control and understanding how to move forward properly. That's really where I see 99% of the swing issues arise. Either kids are getting stuck on their back leg or they're too far in front. They can't find a balance point. And a lot of the time, it's actually more of a mental thing than it is a physical. And why I say that is because everybody is taught to try and get locked in their back hip or overload their back leg or whatever it might be, or get into this certain position when all you should be searching for in your forward move is complete body control. And if you're able to have that complete body control, no matter how you have to think about it in order to achieve it, when you look at video, it will look like you're in your back hip. It will look like you're in the ground. So I try and stress that it's not so much about getting your back hip or like really trying to get in the back leg or keeping the heel down. It's none of that. Find what complete control is to you, and then when you look on video, the moves that you want to see will show up. So I think that's the number one thing. And then the second most important mechanical cue, I would say this kind of lends itself towards some of the stuff in my program a little bit, but we do these things called lead arm throws. And it's one of the exercises that we found translates to producing rotational power more so than any other exercise. And when kids start to throw this lead arm ball, they understand how their body should organize in order to throw the ball as fast as possible up the middle of the field, like with good direction. And what they start to notice is it becomes like I'm not saying a less handsy approach because everybody's mechanics are a little bit different, but a lot of guys disconnect super early from their front side and aren't even really aware of it because they're trying to do this. We've noticed when there's like a big gap in space here, when hitters start to swing the bat, a lot of bad things happen because they're trying to force the ball inside too much. And there's been this thing about like that arm bar is terrible, and I'm a little double sided on it. And I think there's bad arm bar and there's good arm bar. But if you look at guys like Ken Griffey Jr., he had a ton of it and didn't have too many problems at the plate. exceptional athlete? Yes. Would he have a super strong core? So I think that's a requirement to do something like that. But if you look at guys who produce a lot of power consistently, you're going to see that their lead arms are pretty much connected to their torso when rotating. There's not a whole lot of daylight right here as they're swinging. So I would say that's something that we've started to stress with our guys a lot more, and have definitely seen some great results for it. Just being more connected because they're using their mass to hit the baseball instead of just their arms. Like your arms are the lightest thing on your body. You probably just shouldn't try and hit with those. You probably should use the rest of it as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see the different types of hitters that find success, right? And I think we're in that,
Mhm.
these last 10, 15 years, it's been tough, right? Especially for kids because they see these guys and the leg kick has gotten more popular and the swing and miss is all over the place. And,
Yeah.
you look at the best hitters over the last, 20, 25 years, the Tony Gwynns, right?
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
Miguel
Yeah.
Cabreras, the Barry Bonds. It's like these guys, they don't move a ton, right? They have very controlled lower halves. Even the guys that do have leg
Mhm.
kicks, it's really more of a in general, more of a knee to knee rather than the leg lift. And
Yes.
you see these guys, and maybe some of them strike out a decent amount, most of them don't. But man, I think the head movement and these kids trying to jump to generate power can really be fixed by just absolutely falling in love with the weight room, right? And not
Yes.
feeling like they
Yes.
need to generate that power because they have
Yes.
the power. So
Yep.
is that something that you see, kind of through the progress if you're starting to work with an eighth or ninth grader over the next 2 or 3 years? Do you see those kids that come in really jumpy that sometimes subconsciously that the issues get fixed just because they're getting rotationally stronger?
Yeah. So that's actually something that I stress on our discovery call a lot is that like everybody comes to me because they want to hit the ball 100 plus miles per hour, which is great. I love that. Okay. But I tell everybody like my goal is to increase your 100th percentile exit velocity. So let's say for sake of example, you're at 100 miles per hour. We can increase your exit velocity to 110. Okay. That's great. But I don't actually want you to try and access that 110 in the game. Now, because you can produce higher exit velocities with lower effort, you're going to be more consistent. So the name of the game is for me increase the 100 percentile exit velocity. So at 80%, that athlete can produce the same or even a little bit more force, but he's 10 times more consistent. So yes, absolutely, I see that all the time because guys don't feel the need to create a bunch of extra power. It's no longer in their mind or even in their mind subconsciously with they're at the plate. They're a lot more comfortable and convicted in their ability just to play the game and kind of let it happen.
Yeah, and I think that's how it is for a lot of things, right? If you're, I'm more of
Mhm,
a pitching guy, right? I was a
mhm,
two-way guy in college, but more pitcher, and
mhm,
I could see when I was, I was never gonna, gas guys up. I wasn't gonna throw 93, 94 and blow guys away. I was gonna sit in my, 83 to 87, and I would
mhm,
find that those times when I would try to get 88, 80, 89, it would flatten out because I'm trying to do more.
mhm,
Maybe my front side flies open, whatever it is. But if I stayed comfortable in that mid 80s, my sinker would
mhm.
really be at its best, right? When I'm
Yep,
on a golf course, if I'm swinging at 85%, I can put it in the fairway a decent amount. But when I try to
yep,
outdrive my buddies, I'm yanking it into the other fairway. It
yep,
happens a lot in sports, and I think these problems can get fixed with a couple things, mainly strength, but also we talk a little bit about that mental approach. How much do you dive into that as part of your
yeah,
program? Because I know it's being kind of that remote style, it can be tough at times to have
mhm.
that conversation with kids to talk about hey, what happened in your last game? Oh, I went 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts. I don't know what's going on. How do you incorporate that into what you do?
Yeah, so a lot of times kids will send in videos and they'll forget to provide me like context. Like I'll just get a video of a swing. They'll be like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, I'm not going to make any determinations off of what's going on until you tell me how you feel and what you were thinking and what your approach was. Um, and so we tie that into the majority of things. I think that is the main thing that we probably help with because at the end of the day, like everything starts up here, and if we can fix this, then everything else is going to be is essentially going to be a side effect of that. So it's something that we lean into super heavy. The first thing that I will go to, and this is for everybody. Whenever they have a bad game, we're going to look at, okay, did you make good swing decisions and were you on time? If there's no to both of those answers, we're not looking at your mechanics. That's not the issue. It's impossible to put a good swing on a pitch. Number one, if I always say the hardest thing to do is put a good swing on a bad pitch, unless your last name is Guerrero. Okay, so we're not even going to try that, right? Guerreros are great bad ball hitters. Number two, it's impossible to have the mechanics that you want if you're not even remotely on time, right? So we look at those two things first, and then we hop into um, kind of what their approach is mentally and what they're trying to achieve, and then try and make tweaks from that end. So I actually think more so than the mechanical, part of the reason why we have the 24/7 access with guys like me and guys like Noah, who's just finished playing baseball in AAA, is because the like I said, the mental affects everything. And when the kids are asking these questions, we're just giving them different ways to think about the same thing, just like offering them different perspectives on the information that we already know to be true. And those tweaks seem to like really serve them well in the long run.
Yeah, there's just so much that goes into it. It's again,
Yeah.
it's so tough for these kids with all that is out there these days.
Yeah.
But I am, I try to get out and watch as many games as I can. Like I said, I have a 4-year-old that we get out. We're, high school season is here, and we're getting
Hmm.
out and watching games when we can in junior college baseball, and seeing the programs that you can tell like this hitting guy knows what he's doing when he's talking to these hitters, right? These
Hmm.
guys are going up, whether they have great swings or not. They're going up with a plan, right? They understand
Hmm.
how to hit with two strikes, right? Maybe they
Hmm.
make some swing adjustments. Maybe they make even some box adjustments, which is not popular anymore, right? I know Will Clark talked a lot about that recently in something that he was interviewed in. But there's so many things that go into this, and ultimately, I think finding people that you can trust in this process, right?
Hmm.
Which is really hard to do because there's so many. And maybe not being, I know you said you went all over the place. You're trying to find answers here and there and everywhere. And it's good to have the information, but you ultimately got to really shrink things and say, okay, these are the two or three guys that I really trust. And I'm going to
Hmm.
follow the path and what they're guiding me. When you are
Yep.
working with these families, do you have kids that also have a strength coach that they go to? Do they have a hitting coach that they go to as well and kind of
Mhm.
supplement what you're doing with them?
Yeah, so I've had a few kids who've already had like strength conditioning coaches, but luckily those guys have been very, very open minded as to the things that we do. So they incorporate a lot of what we do into their current program, and then make adjustments basically when we tell them to, off the biweekly basis. Like, hey, this is not going so great for them. We're going to go in this direction. So luckily those guys are super open minded. Open minded. It's more often that we have kids come in with hitting instructors already. And number one, I'd like to see what the relationship is like there. If that player has a good relationship with the hitting coach, he's been going to him for a while, he trusts the work that they're doing. Then my job is to not try and oppose what that guy is saying, but just to be another line of support and reinforcement for the things that they're working on. So I'd like to have an open line of communication with the things that they're working on a daily basis and what they're trying to achieve. So we're not giving them conflicting information, because the the worst thing is that I'm telling them to do one thing and his hitting coach is going to tell him to do the opposite. That is the worst possible thing for the player. So we like to get on the same page with the things that we're working on. And I like to try and be a support system for that. Like I said, just offering different perspectives on how they can like achieve the same thing. So yeah, we have that all the time. Now, sometimes we might have the kid, hey, I think that you should, based off of like everything that you've told me, and the way that you've been performing for the last year or so, it sounds like you need to make some big time changes. So I think that if you were to join my program, you probably need to like do everything that we ask. That's on a very rare occurrence,
Mhm.
but it's more likely that we work, in conjunction with that coach.
Okay. Do you have a? I'm just thinking baseball is so strange in that there's so many different types of players, right? You got the guy
Hmm.
that's going to bop 15 doubles and 15 homers and sit in left field and hopefully he can catch the ball when it's hit to him. And then you got the guy that is going to be really athletic and needs to be able to run around in center field. Do you have kind of modeled programs for that guy, right? That's going to be 215 pounds and maybe he doesn't move well and you need to work on his speed a little bit, but you're really diving into more of, hey man, we got to get you to hit the ball with more power versus
Yeah.
that kid that, hey, maybe he's going to hit, 0 to 3 home runs in a season, but he's going to steal 25, 30 bags.
Mhm.
Those programs, I'm assuming, are very different. Do you kind of model
Yeah.
that? Does it change drastically over time for these guys?
Yeah. So, with everybody that comes to the program, we put them through a 4-week assessment to determine essentially what their deficiencies are, like determine what that force velocity profile is, and then we program it according to like the weak points and the things that are like actually holding them back. So from that instance, it is completely towards the individual and what they are lacking based off of our 4-week assessment. And then when we dive into the hitting side, one thing that I like to do is some guys just want to submit like one video of their swing. Like that's not good enough. I need way more context than that if I'm actually going to help you. Right. So I try and get, sometimes it's a little bit overkill, but the more information they provide us, the better. I try and get as many videos from that kid as possible, whether it be in the cage, BP, or this or that. And I'll get them to kind of tell me what they were doing in that video and how they felt about it. So I have like more context about what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them, and the player that they are. And then we just completely tailor things uh, to the individual from there. So on the weightlifting side, it's the same for everybody. We figure out what the force velocity profile is, program them according to that deficiency, that major thing that's holding them back from having to reaching like their genetic potential. From the hitting side, we really like to dive in. Get as much context as possible about the athlete and their struggles, and kind of figure out how they think, and then kind of go from there. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you see? I mean, I'm sure there's been, guys that have asked you in the past about pitching or, defensive work. I'm an infielder. Do
Mhm.
you have plans of, because I know you're a hitting guy, do you have
Mhm.
plans of
Yeah, yeah.
expansion and maybe doing more stuff for, POs or more stuff for defensive work for infielders? Or are you going to stay in that hitting lane?
So we have some two ways in the program. We don't have any POs. We have some two ways in the program. We have some guys who actually believe that they're going to go to college to be a pitcher, but they're still in the program. And the reason why is because the body creates energy in the same way with whether it's you're throwing the baseball, you're hitting, you're swinging the golf club, or it's all sequenced from the ground up. And the few differences are the time constraint. With hitting, it's a lot more reactionary. With throwing, you pretty much dictate how long that action takes to get done. And then the implement that you're propelling with hitting, you're going to obviously putting force in the barrel and propelling the bat. With throwing, you're propelling the baseball, right? But the same engine powers both mechanisms. So that's why, like in our guarantee, we have a velocity guarantee and a exit velocity guarantee because the same engine powers both mechanisms. So on the pitching side, maybe the only reason why we wouldn't get more pitchers in the program is because that's not who I'm talking to when I'm posting videos and stuff like that. But some of them do recognize it. So from that end, I don't think I'm going to change much. On the defensive end, definitely something that I want to start to explore. But now is not the time. Now is not the time for that.
Yeah, you're rolling. I
Yeah.
mean, you got such a huge following. One more thing before I let you go. If you were to say, again, for those younger guys, those freshmen or sophomores, when they sign up with you,
Mhm.
what is the biggest issue that you are seeing with most of these guys from the physical side of things? Is it upper body strength? Is it mobility? Is it lower body strength? Is it core strength? What's the biggest deficiency that you're seeing right when they're coming on board with you?
Most of them, it's so on the force velocity continuum, it's most of force development, but more specifically, force development in a rotational fashion is the main thing that I see lacking. Most guys have they go in and they might lift like a bodybuilder, or they might even think they're doing some baseball specific things, but they're really not. And the most common thing that we see is guys' strength. Let's say their bench, squat, deadlift has increased 25%, but then you look at their numbers and there's no direct correlation there. There's no direct correlation to exit velocity, throwing velocity, and things like that. Is because they're not actually building strength in a rotational fashion or ever testing for it. So that's like the main thing that I see is guys who've already put in a decent amount of work and seen some strength gains, but it does not correlate to the big three metrics because it's not in a rotational fashion. So all strength is not created equal. We'll say that.
Yeah, no,
All strength is not created equal.
that's awesome. I just think about, the old days of squatting and deadlifting and benching, and it's
Mhm.
all good stuff, important stuff, but there's a lot more that goes into it these days to really benefit
Absolutely.
yourself rotationally.
Mhm.
So if these guys want to learn a little bit more about, I know on here, your Instagram handle will be on my podcast
Nice.
on the screen, so they can check you out.
Mhm.
But what's your website and what's your Instagram handle, just so everybody's getting all
Yep.
the information, they could check you out.
Absolutely. So on Instagram, it's going to be Ian Jenkins _hitting. And my website is thefreakathleteprotocol.com/home. If you go to those pages, pretty much give you all the information you need. If you go to my Instagram, just click the link in the bio. Or if you have any questions, just hit the message button and DM me. I'll get back to you and answer whatever questions that you might have.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Obviously, everybody share this episode with whoever you can. On the offensive side, on the strength training side, another really great resource here to help you guys out. So share this with anyone. High school kids, college kids, even pro guys. I know Ian has
Mhm.
a really wide range of types of athletes that he works with on the baseball side. So
Yeah.
share this stuff with whoever you can. Ian, I really appreciate you hopping on here today. I'm sure we're going to
I
talk.
appreciate you, man. Thank you.
We're going to talk again soon. We're going to keep this relationship going and enjoy the weather out there. I know San Diego's pretty beautiful today.
Oh yeah, it's really nice out here in Scottsdale. I'm excited for some spring training games, man. I can't wait to go out.
Hey, I'm going to hit you up when I get out there. I'm going to be taking my family. So,
Sounds good, man. Sounds good.
all right, I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Take care.